Welcome to the Ernest Hemingway photo album.
Ernest Hemingway's biography is one that is very diverse. Ernest Hemingway is one of the authors of The Lost Generation. He was also mentored by Gertrude Stein, and although she was the one who actually invented the term, it was Hemingway who popularized it, mainly through his book The Sun Also Rises. Also, many of his books were inspired from war experiences, such as his time in the Italian army as a volunteer ambulance driver during World War I. Hemingway was also appalled at the level of atrocities humans were committing in war, and as a result, was inspired to write books that broke down the facades of war to reveal their barbarity. While he was traveling in Paris with his army friends, he began to recognize the aimlessness in the lives war veterans led and was inspired to write The Sun Also Rises.
Ernest Hemingway's style is extremely distinctive and can be broken down into three main characteristics. 1. Hemingway tends to use long sentences as demonstrated in the clip of Midnight in Paris that we watched in class, where the main character meets Ernest Hemingway while climbing into a cab. 2. He also has a tendency to outline his main character as powerful but conflicted. In my book, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Robert Jordan symbolizes a spirit of freedom, but is inwardly conflicted. I'll discuss this more later. 3. Another main theme in all of our books is the interwovenness of violence and sexuality. I have another example of this in my slide.
In Ernest Hemingway's banquet speech, he says, "For a true writer, each book should be a new beginning where he tries again for something that is beyond attainment. He should always try for something that has never been done or that others have tried and failed. Then sometimes, with great luck, he will succeed." So in Hemingway's works, they were often motivated by the false persona war took on, and as a result, he tried to break down those facades by writing novels of the lost generation. Seeing the media portray war as heroic and glorious, he was prompted to write novels that reveal the barbarity and repercussions of war. And in his presentation speech, the Nobel Committee also said, "It may be true that Hemingway's earlier writings displayed brutal, cynical, and callous sides which may be considered at variance with the Nobel Prize's requirement for a work of an ideal tendency. But on the other hand, he also possesses a heroic pathos which forms the basic element in his awareness of life." So though his earlier works were about the atrocities of war and how he could show another approach on it, he also still held the central theme of an emotional realization, making the characters more aware of his surroundings. And Hemingway allows the brutality of war to change a character's emotional schema, creating a fluctuation in gender roles in society. Throughout A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and The Sun Also Rises, Hemingway attempts to break down the facades of war, illustrating the fluctuations of imbalance war can bring upon societal gender definitions.
In my book, A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, it leads the story of a young lieutenant named Henry and how he falls in love with a nurse named Catherine and the lives they lead. The main central thesis in my book was that war can lead to the attempted solidification of gender roles, but the effects of continuing strict roles leads to a fluctuation or imbalance of traditional roles in society. So my first quote is from page 8, and it's saying, all thinking men are atheists. And we'll see religion plays a big part in my book, as good men are often religious, yet, as this quote shows, they do not think, and they are all about muscle and bravery, with leaving emotional and philosophical thinking to women. My second quote is that it doesn't finish. There is no finish to war. War is not won by victory. One side must stop fighting. Why don't we stop fighting? So this was said by a minor character named Pacini, and he highlights the solidified social roles in society, in which men are expected never to back down and to fight to the very end without fail. So this, once again, is another continued strict gender role which is imposed upon the men, that they should continue to fighting even when they think failure is an option, and that they should back down, but instead men should be brave, and without fail they should continue to fight. Lastly, we see that it shifts a little as war takes its toll, and that Catherine says, "I can keep you safe. I know I can, but nobody can help themselves." So Catherine is assuming the care of Henry, who's now been wounded, and he gets his knees blown out by a trench mortar. And she's insisting that she takes care of him, which is a large fluctuation of gender roles for the time period, as this time period usually the men supposed to take care of the families, and instead, in this instance, now Catherine is assuming the role of the caregiver, and she's looking after Henry after he's been wounded.
For Whom the Bell Tolls follows a band of rebels in the Spanish Civil War. Robert Jordan, the main character, left his job as a college professor to join the fight for freedom under the Republican side. Robert Jordan is portrayed as a powerful man and quickly falls in love with a basket of female stereotypes named Maria, who no doubt is a biblical reference to Mary, the patron saint of women and mothers. As soon as the war takes its toll on Jordan, his views on violence become warped, and the book's gender stereotypes become unstable. Killing is something one must do, but ours are different from theirs. Here, war warps the main character's morals when he realizes that both the Republicans and the fascists have committed atrocities against human life. Robert Jordan now simply continues fighting on the side of the Republicans because it's less wrong, not more correct. We're introduced to Pablo and Pilar, a couple where the woman is clearly more powerful in the relationship. In a later chapter, Pilar subdues a man who previously carried himself with confidence. "Thou must act like a man," she said to Primitivo. "A grown man. You, with your gray hairs and all." Understanding Pablo and Pilar helps understand our thesis. Pablo has a monologue where he explains that sometimes he cannot find the strength to be a man, as his spirit has been drained by the war. He said he could not satisfy Pilar because he couldn't help but think of the atrocities committed during the war. This causes Pilar to take the role of the stereotypically dominant male in the relationship, and Pablo to adopt a submissive role. Hemingway suggests that the war alters a person so fundamentally that it even distorts the most basic primitive purpose of humans.
Throughout The Sun Also Rises, Jake Barnes and Lady Ashley Brett both defy societal gender definitions. Jake Barnes is a war veteran and due to his injuries is no longer able to copulate. As Jake's lack of manhood contributes to his insecurity, Lady Ashley Brett provides a stark contrast to his masculinity as she is seen as a powerful and independent woman, the center of the men's attention in the book. On page 34, Jake Barnes is begging Lady Ashley Brett to be with him, however she insists she cannot. "We'd better keep away from each other. But darling, I have to see you. It isn't all that you know." "No, but it always gets to be. That's my fault. Don't we pay for all the things we do, though? Besides, what happened to me is supposed to be funny. I never think about it." So through a historical lens, it was believed that women must wait for the men to return from the war, resume the role of the breadwinner, and then start a family. Brett has been conditioned by the patriarchal society of the Roaring Twenties into believing she needs what Jake lacks. As a result, Brett categorizes Jake as unfit of a man, thus catalyzing his insecurity. In addition, Brett highlighted Jake's insecurity by exhibiting traits such as strong will and independence, contrary to what society defined women as. She expected what was expected of a man, and as a result, her presence emasculated Jake.
In conclusion, Hemingway's experiences in World War I prompted him to write about the lost generation and revealed to the public the true atrocities of war. Hemingway's intentionally constructed simple sentences, along with the creation of a strong and thoughtful hero, allows him to emphasize the themes of war and sexuality. By breaking down the facades of war across all three novels, Hemingway illustrates the fluctuations of imbalance war can bring upon societal gender roles.